TWS School is a school for autistic children and young adults, and we have set this podcast up to provide our pupils with a fantastic opportunity to develop a range of skills whilst interviewing top sports and men and women from a variety of different sports. Joining us today on the TWS Sports Podcast is a former footballer. He played for teams such as Birmingham, Watford, Shrewsbury and Walsall. He is now a coach at Walsall FC. Welcome to the podcast, Mat Sadler.
Alright, thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.
Fantastic work, guys. It's absolutely brilliant what you're doing. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
We'll do our best.
Before we start, we just wanted to say that if throughout this podcast, if you have any questions for us about anything, about our podcast, or you have a question about autism, then please ask. We like to answer your questions too.
Yeah, this is a conversation, not an interrogation.
Okay.
Unless you committed any crimes, we aren't your
We'll
interrogators.
see how deep we get. It might turn into an interrogation.
We like to start our podcast with some random questions before we start talking about your career. Are you ready?
Yes, go on, far away.
Who is the most famous person in your phone book?
It's always funny.
I can't think. If I'm honest, I don't have many too favourite. No, I'm trying to think of that. That's a tough one. Let me come back to that.
Alright.
Okay. Question 2. If you could trade lives with anyone for a day, who would it be and why?
If I could trade lives with anyone, it'd be quite good to be an astronaut for the day. That'd be quite fun.
Okay, obviously not the kind that would probably get themselves into a bunch of trouble. We all know there's at least one person like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't fancy the journey up. I'd just enjoy when I'm there.
Just close your eyes
Yeah, I'd be a man
and say, tell me when it's over.
Yeah, exactly right. Although I wouldn't want to be stuck on a space station either. So give me one day up there. So maybe 12 hours on the way up. Enjoy that a couple of hours and then I'm on the way back down.
Yeah, going, nope.
But yeah, I'll take an astronaut for the day. That'd be good fun.
Yeah. Okay, third question. If you could have any superpower, what would you have and why? Any superpower, what would it be? You could even list more than one.
More than one. I think I was always a Superman fan. I was brought up on Superman, so to fly would be amazing.
Okay.
I'd like the lasers that he had out of his eyes as well. But yeah, to fly around the world, that'd be incredible.
Okay, just as long as you don't have vertigo.
No, I don't have vertigo, no. More than anything, I like the cape that he wore, so I'd want to be Superman, but I'd make sure I had a cape.
You'd have to watch out for propeller blades though.
Oh yeah, I'd go below the planes.
Go, no thank
Off
you.
the flight path.
Always health and safety on your list.
Yeah, always health and safety conscious.
Last question. You can stop one crime forever, but the way you can stop it from ever happening again is by committing that crime yourself.
One crime, if I could stop one crime forever.
Yep.
After you have committed it, that crime will never happen again anywhere in the world. What crime are you choosing and why?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
The tricky one again.
Yeah, one of our actually it was one of our guests who asked this to be a permanent question.
Yeah.
It's a good question. What other answers have people given to that question?
Mostly murder.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to commit murder to that. Oh yeah, but take him off the team.
I'm sure there's a few people on the top of the list.
Yeah.
Murder's one.
Maybe someone who deserves it.
Bank robbery.
Gosh, yeah, this is really tough. I thought we were trying to talk about.
We're avoiding one crime. We're avoiding one crime for obvious reasons. This is a
This is
it's family
It's
friendly.
a family-friendly podcast, yeah. Well, I'll go for murder, although I don't think I could do the initial part, but we'll go murder.
Take one for
Yeah. But just maybe make sure it's someone that deserves it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, and someone that, if it did it'd be someone that would make a difference to the rest of the world. Go with that.
Yeah, make sure it's
Answers
someone
on
who
a
deserved
postcard,
it.
actually.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Alright, go on then, Tom.
Thank you for answering those questions. Let's chat about your career. We want to take you back to the beginning and talk about your childhood. What are your memories of growing up, and did you always want to be a footballer?
Yes to the last part. I think I had a fantastic childhood. We grew up in what Birmingham do you know? Do you know any parts of Birmingham?
We know a couple
Been
of
to
parts.
Birmingham.
So I'm from Cardiff.
I was there. I went there once or twice.
So I grew up not in a suburb outside of the city of Birmingham. So it was lovely. It was amazing to grow up where we grew up. It was very much so a time where you were just out on the street playing and didn't really have any other thought about where your mates were that lived on the houses close to you because you were just out playing
As
with
long as
them.
we didn't hit any of the windows.
And yeah, you're right. Any of the windows had to be avoided. Yeah.
I'm sure there were a few. That's very avoided
Yeah,
though.
luckily I was quick, so we just ran off as soon as. Yeah. But,
Wasn't us.
it wasn't us. No, it was. I had an amazing childhood. Parents did everything they possibly could to give me everything that myself and my two sisters needed. Dad worked at umpteen jobs, as is the tale, but that's what happened. He did everything that he could to kind of. It's a big commitment for parents to take, and I know that now as a parent.
Yeah.
And Dad and Mum did absolutely everything that they could to give me the opportunities that I was going to need to play football.
Yes, my parents are like that as well. They do what they can to help out when they can.
And they were those people, and they were there probably for the sacrifice of their own dreams or their own kind of desires to move up in whatever they did that for us, and they were fantastic and continue to be fantastic role models for me as a parent now. So I had a fantastic childhood. Many happy memories, loads of arguments and fights with my sisters. Are you the only boy in that? I am the only boy. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So me and my dad
No
have to
pun
sit together.
intended.
Yeah. I've got an older sister and I've got a younger sister, so
Yeah.
sandwiched in the middle.
I'm naturally the middle sibling myself. I've
Yeah.
got two olders and one younger. And they're
Oh,
all
God.
girls. My poor dad.
Oh yeah, poor dad. It's chaos in your house.
The eldest of us though lives somewhere else with my nephew.
Oh okay.
Yeah, she's a parent now herself.
Oh amazing. So, but family's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
We had a lovely big family.
They're also intriguing. I learned this morning that my dad's take on being a parent is don't be his parents.
Oh really? Okay. Well no, I'll probably be the opposite. I'm happy to kind of use some of the things that my parents gave me. And we were lucky again, we had, where we lived, we had cousins nearby, we had aunties, we had uncles. It was very much so an extension of our family where we were. So
You probably know more about your family than I know about mine. I don't even know 1/3 of it.
Oh really?
Okay, anyways, back to the we're
the
veering
script.
off topic. You made your debut for Birmingham in 2002. How did it feel playing for your hometown?
Yeah, that was great. I think it was amazing. It's better than great. It was I was 17 at the time, so I was very young, and it was
Teenager.
Yeah, teenager, not long out of school, so it was a big deal. Probably it happened very quickly. I think I've been told a story since that Steve Bruce phoned my dad up at work, which I wasn't aware of until maybe a month ago, and Dad started telling me the tale. And let him know that, well, he knew, my dad knew before me that I was playing the game, so which was nice. So Dad was able to come down and come to the game with a load of my family, so that was nice. Seems like a long time ago now. Life's gone so quickly. 21 years later.
Life does that.
It's got a tendency
Flashes
to do
by
it.
before you know it.
Yeah, it really does. But brilliant, amazing feeling. We won the game. That was a League Cup game. Was that game? So we won that 3-2, I think it was, against Leighton Orient, which then led to me playing in the Premier League not long after. So it was a lovely. It was a good time, and I was blessed because, as mentioned, Steve Bruce again, he thought really highly of me, and he was kind of the real one who stuck by me and wanted me to do well.
You finished 13th in the Premier League in your first season with Birmingham. What was it like to play in the Premier League, and what are your memories of it?
My memories of it is that everyone is very good around you. It's I remember, I don't know if we'll come to this, but I was telling somebody the other day, as you do when you've stopped playing, you reminisce on your career, and I played against Chelsea in a game a few years after my debut, this was. And the game started, and I think Damien Duff started the game. Fantastic left midfielder, playing on the right side, I was playing left back. Then, and he was a tough cookie. Then Robin came on later in the game, and then he saw I had to go in for the next, whatever it was. And then Joe Cole came over to my side. I think I was just bombarded with as many top players to do the dirty on me. But we finished 0-0.
Yeah.
So we did okay.
Did your job.
Yeah, we did a job.
Football players like picking fights with each other as the noise outside. Yes.
Well, that is not fights. That's just it's a raucous staff room. It's a good place to be.
Organised chaos.
It is. Chaos is the word, but it's, as you say, it's.
Other than the first part, however, the organised part, maybe.
No, yeah, but that was a good time to play. You know, there's fantastic players around us, and we had some very good players at Birmingham at the time. Some international players like Matty Upson played for us, Jermaine Pennant played for us. We had a very, very good team at that time, so it was great to be involved in that.
Yeah.
Nice. You then went out on loan to Northampton and spent the next few seasons suffering from injuries. You were out injured from January 2004 to February 2006. Can you tell us about that period, please? And it must have been a very challenging time for you as a young player.
Definitely, that loan move out to Northampton came in the middle of the injuries, really. So I certainly didn't give my best account of myself on that loan, and I just couldn't get out. Long story, really, but to me, it's a big part of kind of my tale, my story. I trained. I was in the squad for Birmingham at the weekend. We played Chelsea, and then on that Monday, I think I'd got the wrong end of the stick, so I should have been going into education as it was, because I was 17, so we had education on a Monday as part of my scholarship. But I thought the assistant manager had said I was training with them. Anyway, when I turned up, he was like, "You're supposed to be education, but as you are here, you might as well train." And in that session then was when I first did my ankle, which then led to 5 more surgeries.
I take it.
Yeah, he did. He made that noise.
Maybe not.
Nice.
Wait, it actually made that noise.
It made a noise. It
made an unsavoury noise.
It made one where I thought this isn't right. So then that led to 5 surgeries, and I couldn't get right. I couldn't get fit, and it's carried on throughout most of my career. That moment, without question.
Yeah, we've interviewed a lot of people who have hurt themselves in the past. This one guy was basically accident prone. There wasn't a bone in his body and it broke.
I think it's natural as a sportswoman, you do suffer injuries, and I think even if you don't play a
But
professional
not that
sport,
many at once.
you'd be surprised. I know, he's a rugby player, he's Jordan Murphy.
Yeah.
You broke the bone.
Well, them guys.
After that, we sent a little message, and I literally couldn't help myself, and I told him to take care of his body that isn't broken.
But you're right. That is sport. You're always going to find injuries, and you're very. The rest of my career, I didn't suffer any injuries, which was great. But I was always inhibited by this accident that's happened when I probably shouldn't have been there. So that was a key moment in my career where I always felt like I never quite reached where I was supposed to reach personally, because
when I hear about these injuries, it makes the time I fell from the stairs and landed on one of my ankles first seem painless.
Yeah.
Falling from the stairs, that is painful.
Yeah, I slipped and fell and on my feet first. I was dragging that foot along for the next few weeks.
But yeah, it's part and parcel of it. So I managed I did manage to get, as you say, it was a couple of years where I was fighting to regain a career, really. I looked at all different careers. I didn't think I was ever going to get back to it. But going back to what I just said previously about Steve Bruce, fortunately for me, he was still the manager throughout that period. I think he was there for 5 or 6 years, and he was my biggest champion, if you like, and I owe a lot to him. And he, when I looked like I was regaining any sort of level of what I thought I was back like before, he put me back in the team, so I owe a lot to him.
In 2006, you got relegated with Birmingham from the Premier League. What are your memories of that, and why do you think you got relegated?
What does relegated even mean?
So we were in the Premier League then, and then when you get relegated, you finish in the 3 lowest seeds in the league. So the following season we had to play in the division below. But memories of that season, or that ending to the season, we gave ourselves a fighting chance of staying up. I think there'd been a period in the middle of the season where we kind of struggled to get results, but towards the end of it we picked up some real good results at the end of it, and it looked like we were in the mix for it. Just unfortunately, I think we drew at home to Newcastle 0-0. Whether we'd have won, maybe give us another chance, but we couldn't quite get that goal. So I was devastated. I was gutted, because as a Birmingham fan, I didn't want to play. I didn't want a part of my legacy to be a part of them being relegated. So I probably took it worse than maybe others, because I was genuinely gutted that we got relegated. But part of that story is the following season we got promoted. So without question, my proudest moments in football was standing in Birmingham City Centre and kind of taking in a fantastic crowd of getting promoted.
At which club do you think you played your best football and why?
I probably, I separate my career in a couple of parts. So the first part, whilst at Birmingham, without question, playing at the highest level I played at in the Premier League, in the Championship, at the top end of the Championship. I played some good football then. That was some good times. That was as a left back. And then latterly, my career when I was at Shrewsbury, which I'm sure we'll come to later, but I moved into centre half then, and that's when I really felt that I was having the influence on the game that I thought I could do. And maybe that just came a couple of years too late for me in terms of moving inside the pitch. I think maybe if I'd have done that earlier, then maybe it would have been moving back up that tree again. But so yeah, at Birmingham definitely, and then Shrewsbury secondly, I'd say. In the middle of that, there was a lot of consistent playing and stuff like that. But without question, I felt like I played the best football. If you could hear that, by the way, that's the training grounds chaos. My best football at Birmingham as a left back, and then Shrewsbury as a centre half.
The following season, you got promoted back to the Premier League.
Right.
Where are you going, Tom?
Question 7.
Number 8.
Downwards. Downwards.
On that one.
Yeah, we skipped that one.
I know,
That one.
We talked about that, so number 8.
Down. We don't go up. We go down.
Yeah. Who was the one player you found most difficult to defend when you were playing the Premier League?
Oh well, probably Duff. I would say would be one of the hardest. He was fantastic. He could go both ways. He ran at you with pace. For me, he was a hell of a challenge to play up against. And whenever you play as a defender, a left foot on the right hand side, difficult because it can go both ways against you. So Damien Duff for me, he was a fantastic player.
So not been doing Dev's career at all, but obviously we like some gigs with him and
Yeah, I never played
Ollie
against.
or-
No, did I? I might have played against Geeks. I played against Man United. I played against David Beckham. That was a tough challenge as well, but different to Duff, as I say. David Beckham was my memories of playing in that game. Incredibly fit, incredibly mobile. As soon as he passed the ball, he was moving again, so very difficult to tie down. So different challenge that he kind of gave you. I'll recollect Duff being the one because I knew he could do you both ways, and that was tough. But yeah, again, different challenges. David Beckham was a fantastic crosser of the ball, so you had to know you had to get tight to him because he was so elusive with his movement. That was difficult as well.
Do you regret any of your time at Birmingham? You were there for 6 years and played 51 games. How do you feel about that looking back now?
Yeah, well, I think obviously a lot of it was injury hit. I regret going to training that day. It's probably the new me, the old me would make sure I was supposed to be in or not. But injury, as we said, is part and parcel of it. So that's the one moment that I wish didn't happen, rather than regret. You can't change anything. But you always would have liked to have played more times. I think there was a few cup games in there that might be missed out. So I always saw it as around 70 or 80 games, but 51 doesn't sound very many in 6 years, does it? I felt like it was more than that.
I think it's Premier League that we got stats from, so yeah.
But yeah, I'm very much so one to always move forward, and I absolutely love my time. Managed to get promoted with them from the Championship to the Premier League, played in the Premier League for Birmingham. That sort of stuff was dream come true stuff.
You then joined
Watford.
Yes, Watford in 2008. Why did you decide to join Watford?
Well, at the time, Alex McLeish had just joined Birmingham, and he wanted to bring his own player in. I still had a couple of years left on my contract, but he wanted to bring in his own people, which was fine. So it was the first time that I was aware of, okay, you're going to have to move. And I had a decision to make. I could have signed for Wolves, who had Mick McCarthy as the manager at the time, or I could have signed for Watford. And at the time, Watford were top of the Championship. So in my mind, it was a case of go back, get promoted with them, and then you'd be back in the Premier League the following season. As it worked, Mick didn't get promoted that season. We didn't either, but Mick did the following season, so maybe it wasn't the right decision to have made. But going to Watford felt like the right thing to do. As I say, they were top of the league, but as it turned out, they'd actually sold a couple of their best players in that same transfer window I signed, so it didn't quite work out for us.
We read that you had a disappointing end to your time at Watford and you were sent to the reserves. How did you feel about this, and do you think the manager was right to do that to you?
Well, during that time, we had 3 different managers. It was a bit of a strange period in Watford's history because there was some real potential bad financial period with the owners were kind of in and out, and it was, I think, I can't remember if we went into administration or not. I can't quite remember if we actually got that close, but it was a bad period for the football club in that kind of financial terms, so and also managerial terms. AD moved forward, who signed me. He lost his job the following season, and then Brendan Rodgers came in. He then left the year after he'd come in. Malcolm Mackay took over, so it was a very up and down period. And then for myself, I think, was I playing my best football? No, I think I was probably still reeling from the fact that I'd left Birmingham, which I didn't quite realise how much that affected me leaving the club that I probably thought I was going to be at for my whole career. And moved house, back down south, to down south, which was tough for me, moving away from home, all my support network. So all of those things probably contributed to me not playing the best football that I could have played. So difficult period in that respect. Could it have gone either way? Yes. Could I have done better? Most definitely. Could I have worked harder? Probably. But it was all part of the experience, I suppose, and then puts me to where I am now.
Do experiences like this make you better? As a coach, how would you know how? Sorry, now is it spelling mistake? Now how would you?
Do experiences make you better, and as a coach now?
Oh, okay. So I've got confused context. Do experiences like this make you better? As a coach now, how would you have dealt with some of the situations that you found yourself in?
100% every experience in general, if you spin it positively, you can use it positively. And for sure, for me, how especially I'm going to take it into my coaching career, is there's always other things going on in people's lives, and it's getting to know the person more than kind of the outcome or what's being displayed. So I was fully aware of my time at Watford that I wasn't giving myself the best opportunity to kind of be the best version of me as possible. Now there were loads of different factors for that we probably won't go into, but for me as a coach, I'm always weary and careful of finding out what's up with the person and what's going on in their lives, because a hell of a lot of the time it's not the hour that you get with them every day or the 90 minutes on a Saturday which is the real kind of reason for a performance. It's a lot about the rest of the time when they're away from there. So as best as I possibly can, I try to kind of see what's going on in everyone's lives.
Alright. We have a selection of photos we would like to show you.
Okay. Any long hair?
There's a variety, that's for sure. We would like you to explain what is happening in the photos for our listeners, and then what the photos remind you of.
Okay, go on. Fire away.
So he's just won't be flying on quick
fire round. Okay, yeah, so I spoke about this. This is where, and I still obviously have that medal. This is where we stood on the council house balcony in Birmingham city centre, and there's thousands and thousands of Birmingham City fans that are lining the bottom. I don't know if you know, there's something called the floozy, the jacuzzi in Birmingham, and that's the area that all the supporters are kind of congregating.
So this is after you got promoted?
This was after we got promoted to the Premier League.
Was that automatically or playoffs?
We finished second. Finished second that season. We Sunderland managed to pick us on the final day, but probably the reason for that is there was a thing on Sky Sports, I remember at the time, and we were promoted on the Sunday, I think, because Derby lost the game, and then we weren't back in until the following Friday. Whereas I think Sunderland trained every day and did it properly to win the title. But for us, we'd got promoted, so we were more than happy. But that's one of my cherished memories, getting promoted. He's here. This is a picture of myself and my son, Sonny.
Oh, Sonny.
Yeah, Sonny. Yeah, he's the
Oh, he's
angel.
tiny.
Yeah,
Probably was tiny.
I'd say he was probably 4 years old there. He's 6 now.
So he's still rather tiny.
He's still small, but he packs a punch, the little angel. So he's my angel, as my other two are as well. But that's there, straight after a game. We always do that.
Are you sure they aren't occasionally devils?
They've got that side to them as well, yeah, that's for
Well,
sure.
that's what all kids are.
Especially when they're together.
My nephew's actually 4.
Oh, really? So you'll see some of that. It's crazy. They're brilliant, though. A house full of kids is amazing.
So I'm sure they are. Any family football fans? Are they?
Yeah, as I say, daddies for sure. Me and dad, very much so similar in kind of both from Birmingham City and football fans forever for sure. And all of us, as I say, where we brought up, you kind of football's the thing. But whenever we win, and I still do this as a coach now, my kids are there. I'll always go and get my kids to kind of join in with that win with me.
This one's from a horror movie. Alyssa didn't like this one.
Oh,
That was an FA Cup 3rd round game against West Ham.
You got hit on the head with something hard.
I did. I headed the back of, I think it was Andre Ayew's head. And then, just split. We couldn't stop the bleeding. This was actually in the second half. It happened in the first 15, 20 minutes of the first half. But yeah, we just wouldn't stop bleeding. And again, as a parent now, I would look at that, and if that was my son, I'd feel so worried and scared stiff that they were okay. But when you're playing and it's yourself, you couldn't care less. You're just still playing, and you.
I'd go.
But yeah, tough. I enjoyed that. We lost in extra time in the replay.
This made us laugh and all that.
Yeah, gosh, yeah.
What happened to your? What happened to that guy's shirt?
Oh, no, I don't know what happened. I was obviously I mistimed the header with that one. They were listening. I'm glad this is a video so no one can see this picture, but that's me showing my slips off.
Where do we find these again?
Yeah.
Google's name.
We found them. We found those on Google.
Google. We need to erase them off Google somehow.
Yeah, because if we found that, anyone else could.
Yeah, but look, hopefully no one's searching for things like this. But we lost that game. I remember this was for Crawley. I think we were beat 5-2 or 5-3. We got absolutely tonked by Knox County.
So you got 2 more.
So
You look probably young in that one. Were you
This one?
Yeah, were you a teenager or or just about an adult?
Yeah, this was when we'd just been relegated with Birmingham. So that was after the Newcastle game that I just spoke about. We drew 0-0, but then it was finally made aware that we were going to be relegated. So yeah, absolutely kind of, as the picture shows, devastated that we were relegated.
Last one.
Was that the same picture? It's the same
No,
picture
it's
with a
the same.
different angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, just been relegated by, unfortunately, drawing the final game. I can't remember who we were in a rap battle with. It might have been Wigan. I think it was Wigan. They went on a crazy run at the end of the season to kind of oust us out of the places. But yeah, gutted that we've just been relegated, but delighted when we get promoted.
Go on, Tom.
You then went out on loan to Stockport and Shrewsbury. What are your memories of that, and what is it like to go out on loan?
Well, Stockport for the first one, that was a bit of that was a tough time for them as a football club. In amongst all of those kind of tough experiences at Stockport, I met I don't know if any of you know of football, but Gary Ablett. You'll have heard of him. He played for Liverpool, and he was a fantastic left-sided centre-half defender. He was the manager at the time, and God rest his soul. He's since passed away, unfortunately. But it was as tough as that time was, and as many curveballs and kind of tough things that were thrown at Gary, he somehow managed to kind of just keep everything together. Fair play to him, a lesson man, and the whole thing would have imploded. I think people would have turned up to games and things like that. But anyone who's a Stockport fan, obviously better times ahead for them as a football club. But during that period, for sure, it was a tough time, and it was a tough time. I think we lost every game barring one when I was there. It was a poor team that they had, but he kept the ship going, and I got a lot of respect for him as a person. So In terms of a loan, it was a calamitous loan, but in terms of an experience, it was a one that I've always cherished to be around him. And then moving on to Shrewsbury then, the following season, that was a fantastic loan. Unfortunately, we lost in the playoffs at the end of that season. We should have been promoted. There was a goal, any Shrewsbury fan will remember this, we conceded a goal. Wycombe finished third above us, and a couple of games before the end of the season we played Wycombe, and I can't remember if we were winning or they went 1-0 up, but anyway, the goal they scored, the linesman gave the goal, but it wasn't over the line. 100% wasn't over the line. And that cost us ultimately, cost us promotion, and then we finished fourth. I think Ian Sharp's our centre back, he got injured for the playoff semi-final, first leg against Torquay, and we didn't deserve to be promoted, and we didn't. But in terms of a loan, that brought back the energy for me and the love of playing again, basically.
You then moved about quite a bit and played for Walsall, Crawley, Rotherham and Oldham. What could you not set up at a club during that period?
Well, Walsall was great again, so I played every game in the season for Shrewsbury in that loan, and then I played every game of the following season for Walsall, so I was in a good place physically. Crawley then came, and at that time Crawley were throwing loads of money at their football club, so I kind of couldn't turn that opportunity down. Finished the 2 seasons there, and at the end of the 2 seasons there, all the money had been pulled out, so I kind of had to make a decision to leave then. Unfortunately, Rotherham were in the Championship, so there was a chance to go back up into the Championship. Steve Evans was the manager at the time, and anyone who knows Steve Evans, it was unfortunately, although I still get on with him to this day now, during that period when he was my manager, it was a tough period. He did, it was...
Want to meet him in dark alley?
It was.
To put it blunt.
And Steve's a fantastic football person, and there's certainly nothing I can say to him with the amount of promotions and things like that he's had. So, not going to in any way say anything bad on that way. But as a player in that year that I had with him, it was a tough year. So I was kind of relieved and happy to then go out on loan to Oldham, which again brought the love back in terms of getting out and playing again.
What happened when you were at Rotherham? You only made one appearance for the club.
Yeah, no, I've just touched on that there. So yeah, played it. Well, another one with the head injury there. That was for Shrewsbury, that head injury. But
I can imagine you had quite a concussion after that.
Well, luckily I didn't. It was just a flesh wound. But
a flesh wound.
Just a flesh wound. But played for Rotherham in the one game I played for them. I don't even, you might know, being Welshers, played for Swansea called Nathan Dyer.
Yeah.
And I headed the back of his head, and that was the worst cut I've had, because I think I had 25, 26 stitches, and it just really opened
Stop
up my head.
headbutting people, you're not a Pokemon!
Oh, tell me about it. Just poor, you can see on this picture here, poor timing of headers.
It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that was...
Maybe you should say no. You should have gotten the idea that you're not good at headers.
No. This is why I'm happy sat on this side of the desk now. Don't have to do any heading anymore. But so that was my one game. Splatted my head completely open. Couldn't play for a few weeks after that.
I bet that gave you a concussion.
Well, exactly. Well, then that hurt. That certainly hurt. And then by the time I was back fit again through that, because obviously my head, it was a right mess. Somebody else had taken my place. So my one opportunity that I played...
Your brain didn't get too damaged.
Oh, exactly right. Yeah.
Well, obviously got a little damage. You were out because...
Yeah, my slogan and my words could say probably different, but that was another experience. Stephen's he's a fantastic football person, and there's a hell of a lot you can take from Stephen, and I think he's showing that again this season. He knows his players. So he obviously knew his players, but only playing me once.
You then joined Shrewsbury again, and that went very well for you. You became captain in 2017, and that season you won a number of awards such as Player of the Year. What are your memories of that?
Well, it actually started off, it didn't go too well. So Mickey Mellon was the manager, and this is football, and this is why as a football player you have to always remember that there's something always around the corner that you can't quite prepare for. So as any player that I'm playing with the team at the moment, I'm always telling them to be ready.
Something throws a curveball at you.
Exactly, and I know that is
Yes,
life.
I made it a sports pun.
But I'm sure some of the people you spoke to on this podcast, different pathways open up, and you thought you were going down that way, and then this way all of a sudden presents itself. Well, that pathway for me was Paul Hurst coming into the football club as he did as manager, and Paul saw something in me. Backtrack. There's a goalkeeper called Danny Coyne. Danny, he became interim manager during the period when Mickey had been sacked, and Danny played me at centre back. Because he saw something in me that I could play centre back, which I knew was there, but I'd never been given that chance. Anyway, then Paul took that mantle on and carried that on with that, and it ended up being a fantastic ride of whatever it was, 24 months or 18 months. It might not have even been that long. And Paul made an incredible impression on me, which I still carry now. We still very much so speak fairly regularly. Speak to his assistant Dorgy very regularly. He's just texted me whilst I've been sat here with reviews actually. So the memories of that kind of period at Shrewsbury have had a really indelible income on me as a person.
I want to take you to the end of the 2018 season and the playoff final against Rotherham. You lost this game after extra time. What are your memories of that game?
That was the Birmingham City relegation. There is devastated for. Obviously you've been relegated, but when it's a season-long thing, you kind of, in some ways, you prepare yourself that could happen. The playoff final was devastating because throughout that whole season, we thought we were going to be promoted. We thought we had some good players. We had a fantastic team spirit. We had a group of people that loved being around each other. I've never known, and still to this day, I've never known a dressing room who were willing to stay around the training ground as long as we all did. My wife talks about it now, about how, whatever time I was getting back, and it didn't seem like that. It certainly didn't feel like work. It felt like you were all, not even a group of mates, you were all the people on target for one goal. We thought we were going to get promoted. Everyone was so driven to achieve that. But unfortunately, we ended up hitting an absolute roadblock with the two people who did get promoted in first and second, who were Blackburn and Wigan. They were just blessed with incredible players throughout the team. And unfortunately, we were probably one or two players shy on a couple of games that went the other way. So I think I read a stat the other day that the points for promotion that season have never been matched since. So any other season, basically, we would have been promoted, which doesn't help any Shrewsbury fans, because that was, I'm sure that they took it as badly as I took it. So, and then the memories of on the pitch that day, anybody who was at the game, I still speak about it since, it felt like the sun was on top of Wembley Stadium. It was the hottest I've ever been on a football pitch. It was baking.
Well, it isn't the hottest thing. That heat wave.
Oh, yeah, luckily I wasn't playing then. Yeah, for me that was the hottest. It was honestly, it was as though Wembley had put the roof on and they put the sun the other side of the roof. It felt so hot. It was.
Yeah, but that heat wave a few months ago.
I would have not liked to have played in that. That's for sure.
No.
40 degrees.
It felt like the sun had dropped right on top of us.
That was hot.
You should have seen our garden. Dad looked at the temperature and went, "You should," and looked at the temperature on the news and went, "You should see what our garden's like."
Paddling pool's like a hot tub, wasn't it?
You bake. I don't care. Put it this way, I had never ever slept on top of my bed. I did that.
That was the time to sleep in the garden in the tent, wasn't it? Just get a bit of shade from it. But that was tough, really tough to take. And I still, it probably took me a good 18 months to 2 years to fully get over that. I still watch reruns of it up until, as I say, a couple of years later, mostly because we put so much into it. We'd given absolutely everything for that goal, and thought we really thought that was kind of the storyline that was going to come at the end of it. But it's football.
Yeah.
sorry to bring up memories, but am I right as well? You lost the not League Cup, the football trophy. Wembley that year? Was that the same year?
We lost to Lincoln a month prior to
So
that.
how was that? And how was that summer then for you when football finished and you had sadly lost 2 times to Wembley?
Yeah. Well, I've only been to Wembley as a player twice, and I was captain both times and lost both times. So for sure, if I'd be lying if I said that I didn't, that I wasn't sorry. Having dreams initially of walking up Wembley and lifting trophies and things like that. That was the dream for sure. So to have kind of that not happen, football moves on very quickly, and that was an emotion that I felt I couldn't move on from straight away. It was very, very tough to get over. And I've spoken to Hursty and Doyle about it since, and they still probably aren't over it in the same way that I'm not. In that that was a legacy game, or the 2 games, but the Lincoln one didn't feel as bad because we always knew we had the league to be going and attacking, and although that was gutting to lose at Wembley that day, the second one was the one that was the real one that life moment that you struggled to get over. So yeah, 2 rubbish days in the end.
Number 20, Tom.
A good friend of the podcast is a former teammate of yours, Dave Edwards, and we asked him to describe you in 3 words, and in a sentence he said...
Don't have to answer that. What do you think Dave said? 3 words about you.
Oh, I don't know.
Yes.
What do you like the person to say
I
about you?
imagine he would say I was reliable, probably respectful, honest, a good teammate, all those sorts of things.
Matt is professional, a leader and honest.
You could mark one of the things.
And then Dave went on to say Matt is a great lad, role model to younger players and leads by example. Very good defender with a lovely left foot.
Oh, that's very nice of him. Well, I'm actually fortunate enough to play. Dave texted me the other day, we're going to play, and he's got a testimonial game at the stadium in a couple of months' time. So I'm trying to get myself properly fit so that I don't show myself up in that game. But that's very nice words, and I always pride myself on that professionalism, as I still do now. So thanks, Dave. Thanks, mate. I mean, he had a fantastic career, by the way. Dave, we were talking about him, incredible. Are you going to speak? You spoke to him in the World Cup one. Are you going to speak to him?
We interviewed him. He was our second.
Oh, really?
He was our second ever guest.
Oh, yeah, an incredible person. You've got
The
time for everything.
World Cup was the first time I ever met him. World Cup special.
You're
yeah.
the first, but we spoke to him.
He's been here longer than I have.
Yeah.
I'm actually the first female host.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, Dave's an incredible player.
Oh,
Probably Wales.
what a career and what a... Dave's just, if we're talking about 3 words or things to describe Dave, a fantastic person, that's for sure. I only saw, or was a teammate of his at the back end of his career, and he's the way you could see he's a box-to-box midfield player, and he just had an engine on him. And he was very humble with it all as well. Good bloke.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the one game in your career that stands out for you and why?
Probably that Shrewsbury one. That's the one game that I look back of.
You mean the one that you were
the one
trying
that
to get
got away.
over?
Yeah, the one I still have.
The one where we're digging up memories of.
Yeah.
The one we
Is
can't.
this therapy? Is
Can
that
we-
what we're doing?
I have no idea what this means. Well,
It's gone from an interrogation into therapy.
it was a conversation originally.
No, that would be the game.
Now
That
it's apparently a therapy session.
counselling. No, definitely that was the game, because that was that game there. Anything that you enjoy. This is why team sports are amazing. You go through a real journey with people, and that journey took us to that moment. And unfortunately, in that moment, we fell the other side of it.
Yeah, you could say you kind of kicked the ball the wrong way, and it wound up out of bounds.
Well, yeah, we could. Or it was Richard Wood. Richard, I'm a good friend of Richard Wood, and he scored the two goals against us that day. And I love Woody's story as well. And this is why sometimes I reflect on that time, because Woody, he was at Rotherham when I was there, and was in probably a very similar boat to me. Wasn't playing and wasn't wanted at that stage, and was being asked to go elsewhere. Now Woody's a club legend. He's had umpteen promotions with them. and he had that moment in the sun on that day. So every single time I do think about that moment, I also think that I'm glad that Woody had that moment for him and his family. So another caveat to the tale.
Yeah.
We want to stop midway through and play a quick game with you.
Game time.
Go on then, yes!
No football.
What are we playing?
No footballs though.
We have done this.
Mostly because like I have a bad history. Footballs and me, they don't go. Mostly because they trying to hit. They always hit me on the head.
So we won't go out onto the pitch after this, no?
No.
With all the previous footballers we have spoken to on the podcast, such as Harry Redknapp, Connor Cody, and Michael Flynn, we are going to name some players that you have played with, and I want you to tell us a story about the player or tell us about them. Are you ready?
Let's do these.
Go on then, yeah.
Emil Heskey.
Stories about him, I'm going to tell you about him. I spoke about him the other day, strangely. The best front man, target man, hold-up player I have ever seen. He was incredible. Not too many stories about him, because I was a young player then. He was definitely someone I looked up to. But any way that he might be underrated, he was incredible. And anyone who he partnered up front would tell you how good he was.
He's a strange player, isn't he? Because he didn't really score that many goals.
No.
But you look at England, Michael Owen, Rooney, Shang, whoever, I can't remember who he played with, but always wanted Heskey alongside him.
I'm sure Owen was quoted as saying he was his best front man. Honestly, the way he retained the ball, the strength that he had, he was quick as well, but probably not as quick when I played with him, but he was quick at an earlier part of his career. He just used to bully defenders, and then that took the heat off their partners, as you say, but fantastic football player.
Alright. Paul Devlin.
Paul Devlin, he was probably a little bit another one of my. I'll tell you a story about him for my wife. My wife used to have pictures up of Paul Devlin in her bedroom, and she won't thank me for saying that. That's for sure. So the other day I had a text message because I'm on a Birmingham City ex-players group now, and Paul Devlin's name came up. So she was reverting back to her. I'm going to say...
Fangirl?
Yeah, I'm going to say 8 or 9 year old. She was probably more like 15 or 16. No, she would, yeah. So Paul Devlin was one of her favourites. That's my story about him.
Will Hoskins.
Will Hoskins, okay.
So we just picked them random.
Yeah,
We just nabbed a bunch of randos. Actually, I wasn't even here when the script was made.
I haven't thought about Will Hoskins for a long time.
So where did you play with him, Mike?
Watford. Will was a fantastic striker. I think did we sign him from Rotherham? He either came from Rotherham or we went back to Rotherham. I can't remember properly. Will was a good football player. He was very good. I think he probably had some bad injuries at bad times that meant he didn't go as far as he could have done. But a hell of a striker, that's for sure. But a nice kid as well, lovely kid. Don't know too much about him personally, but lovely lad.
Dean Henderson.
Hendo, the most confident in terms of his ability football player I've ever met. I'd heard stories anyway about how much belief he had in himself, and that kind of was exactly what the person who came through the door when I first met him at Shrewsbury. But by confidence, I don't want to get that mixed up with arrogance. And there was an arrogance in him because he believed he was the best, and he believed he.
Cocky.
Possibly, but for me, he was the right side of cocky. And you know what? Any cocky person has to back it up by playing, and he certainly backed it up. He was passionate towards the fans. The fans loved him. No surprises that every football club he's been at. Probably barring Man U at the moment, that's probably one thing he wants to tick off, the opportunity to become a fan's favourite at Man United, because everywhere else he's been a favourite. Fantastic goalkeeper, incredibly powerful in kind of the way he moved around the goal, and in the top 2 goalkeepers I've ever played with.
Who's your dad?
Mat Sadler, he's a very, very
Do you think
good friend of mine.
Dean could replace De Gea, be number 1 in United?
I think so. I really do. I think I'm gutted for him that it hasn't happened as yet, but I know that De Gea has gone on and had a couple of good seasons previously. For me, could be whatever he wants to be. I hope he has a good loan this season. But a kid who has got incredible talent, and if the kind of stars align and he gets the opportunity, I'm sure he'll take it.
Last player.
Ben Godfrey.
Ben, without doubt, the best raw athlete I've ever come across as a player, as an outfield player. Incredible athlete. He was a man, and by a man I mean he was kind of strong, muscular. Did I play when he was 18 or 19? He was a young player when I played with him. Incredibly gifted football player. I'm so happy that he's going on to have the career he's having. Hope he stays fit from any injury, because if he does, I believe he'll play for England. But first, the one thing that reminds me of Ben, I think about with Ben, is just what an incredible athlete he is.
You then returned to Walsall. How did you feel after returning to Walsall?
Well, I mean, going back at the back end of my Shrewsbury career, I think I felt like, because Sam Ricketts was the manager at the time at Shrewsbury, and I felt like there was an opportunity. Personally, I felt there was an opportunity missed for myself to kind of stay at the club and become a player coach there, or some sort of, I was at that stage of my career. I felt like there was an opportunity missed. So to finish my career at Shrewsbury, I felt like there was unfinished business there. I felt like, for me, they should have, an opportunity was missed to keep me there. That's what I felt anyway. But then when the opportunity to come back to Walsall came, that in that summer, when I knew I wasn't staying at Shrewsbury, the one club that I wanted to join was Walsall. So I was delighted when Darryl Clark phoned me, said he wanted me to sign, and it was an opportunity I was ready to take. I was desperate to come back.
Okay, you then retired from football last year. Was that a difficult decision to make?
No, I was more than happy to I must say.
No hesitation.
No hesitation. I think, and for me, as I kind of got into, that's what I talk about Shrewsbury, when I was kind of 33, 34, 35, the dressing room had become a place that I didn't feel like I fit in anymore. I felt like I fit in the coach's room, and I felt very much so that I was gravitating towards the coaches. So being a player when you feel like that kind of didn't feel right anyway, so I was more than happy to kind of call it a day. But I tell you, you interviewed Michael Flynn, and something that Michael Flynn did for me on the day that he says that I retired, although in my head I'd retired 12 months previously to that anyway. I didn't feel like I needed any further appearances. I was very happy with that, but he was adamant, and he made sure that I came on at the last game of last season for like 5 minutes, which was more than long enough, probably too long, but that gave the opportunity for my family, my wider family, to come to the game, and kind of they all wore shirts from my time of playing, different shirts, and that was purely down to the manager. So Michael Flynn, so I owe, and that's a sign of the man that he is, so I owe a hell of a lot to him to kind of give me the ending that I didn't know I needed, but I'm so glad I had.
And speaking of coaching,
Yeah, you moved straight into being a coach at Walsall. How did that opportunity come about, and is it something you're enjoying?
I'm absolutely loving it for the first part of it. Absolutely loving it. The opportunity came about during COVID actually, and Darryl Clark, the coach, had left. Marcus Stewart, he had left, and there was an opportunity for a first team coach. So I did the whole player coach thing for a year with Darryl, which then became assistant manager player, which was tough. I didn't enjoy that, if I'm honest with you. It was a great experience, but playing whilst also being assistant manager was very tough. So I didn't quite get what I probably would have wanted to out of that scenario. That was under Brian Dutton when Darryl Clark left. And then I got the opportunity to work with Mat Sadler as a coach, which Matt's a fantastic coach, even more. I always yawn whenever I speak about Mat Sadler as well. If he ever listens to this, that's exactly my reaction when he's phoning me. He's a great person, Matt is. The chairman here will always speak about what a fantastic person Matt is, and I would wish no one more success, if that's the right terminology that I'm using. He's a fantastic bloke, and he gave me the opportunity to work under him, and I took a lot of things from him, which now I'm taking with Michael Flynn, who again gave me the opportunity to work with him at a time when he didn't need to do that, and he's continued to do that, and he backs me, and we respect each other heavily. and work really well with each other, both Michael and assistant Wayne.
We have a few questions from Walsall fans on Twitter.
Oh, go on.
The first one comes from Lee Reynolds, who asks, are you helping to develop the younger players at the club, and which players do you see being ready for first team action soon, as is developing younger players as a priority for you?
Definitely, it certainly is. That's a key part of my role here, and in terms of, and it's something I gain a lot of enjoyment from. In terms of players, I think the standout one for me is Roland Marr. We call him Ramp Roland. He's a player with a fantastic future, but one that I think we need to be very careful about throwing out there too soon. For me, I believe Ram has a very, very bright future ahead of him, but I would not want to see that in any way fast-tracked to the detriment of that career. So I want Ram needs time. He needs to develop both physically and on the pitch, but he's got a fantastic future ahead of him.
Our next question comes from DH Lad, who asks, there has been a clear culture change at Walsall since Michael Flynn arriving. How has this achieved when so many managers tried and failed before him?
Well, I can only speak as I find, and I think firstly in terms of the manager and Hats, there's a relentless drive here with them and us as a coaching staff to achieve. We're desperate to achieve, and they will leave no stone unturned to kind of achieve that. They're what's the right word? They're people that won't accept standards dropping. They won't accept things not being right. And when you've got a culture of that, and if that runs through the whole the whole football club, that can be a powerful thing. And at the moment, we're very much so. And I do have similarities here to the time that I had at Shrewsbury that I spoke about so fondly. The drive and the determination to achieve something is certainly within the building. So when you have that, it can be extremely powerful.
I was going to ask as well, because obviously you were a player last year and you're a coach this year. So last year your relationship would have been as a teammate and a friend, and I'm sure obviously you're full friends stuff with now. Has your relationship changed with the players as you move from a player to a coach?
It does. It definitely does. I think when you, to be honest with you, last season I was more coach anyway, but in terms of when that kind of transition happens, it does change. What's different at football clubs at this level, we had a 19-player turnaround last season. We brought in 19 players, I think maybe 18 players, and a lot have left the building. So the ones that have come into the building only know me as a coach now, which helps in that respect. The ones that you've played with, you still maintain a relationship with, but you'd probably do it a different way. You can have that kind of ear on, ear, word in the shoulder, and what's actually going on. And it's quite nice to know, say Hayden White for example, hell of a lot of time for Hayden, and he went through a tough period earlier in this season, and knowing H as I do know H, I know he's strong enough and strong-minded enough to come through that. So knowing him from the dressing room to this side of the fence, I knew he had the ability and the mental strength to come through it, which he is and has done. So it has its benefits for sure, I believe.
Last year, listen to this one.
Okay. Do uncomfortable situations bring out the best or the worst out of you? And can you think of a time where you're in an uncomfortable position?
Apart from today, apart from this, you tell.
I'm sorry.
For me, I think when you really show who you are and your real true colours, when you are in a situation where you're outside your comfort zone. I always say about players and something that anybody who has never been on a football pitch with fans around will never quite grasp, and I'm always careful to make sure that I don't forget that now that I'm a coach. But being on the pitch is the most vulnerable as a football player. Is the most vulnerable thing of your week, and being there evokes, and with a crowd, and that was the difference between when we didn't have a crowd to when we do have the whole COVID season. the fear factor of making a mistake and that vulnerability is what we should always remember when we're kind of having goes at why have you done that as a player, or why have you done that when why have you made that decision. So and for me personally, that whole what Dave said, professional and kind of honest, whatever, reliable, if I did make a mistake I would always own up to that mistake, but I think because of I felt as professional as I would do, that's those uncomfortable situations that I found myself in, I was always able to tap into an experience from. So long and short of that question, with that answer is the football pitch is the most uncomfortable place I've ever been on, and however many times I did that, it was still the most uncomfortable place that I was on, and in general did okay with managing that.
What are your ambitions for the future? Would you like to become a manager in the future?
Let's just hope we're not starting.
Probably that controversial.
Let's hope Michael Flynn doesn't hear this.
Yeah, true. In terms of would you like to be a manager, I think that's always sometimes quite a difficult question because of an opportunity. But if the opportunity came my way, I would certainly, it would be something I would consider. But I'll probably, at the moment in my career, I'm very much so open-minded to where it might take me and where it might lead, and I'm learning under some fantastic people. And if I remain as a coach for the rest of my career, I'll give my absolute all as a coach to kind of benefit the players, benefit the coaching staff, and benefit the people around me. And if I get an opportunity to manage, which may or may not come, I would challenge myself at that stage. But it's not something that I'm saying, yes, definitely I'm going to do that, and I want to do that because I think I'm very much so enjoy my time as a coach.
Okay.
Alright.
Walsall have only lost one game out of the last 11. What do you put the team's great form down to?
I think at the moment we're all pulling in the same direction. We have a foundation of a very good back three, back five, who are very much so up there in terms of who I believe the best units in the division are. And off the back of that, we're finding ways of scoring goals and winning games. And probably like I said, the biggest thing for me is that togetherness and that collective will to, and I'll give you an example at the weekend, not always the will to not concede a goal, because you do concede goals and that does happen, but when we did concede on Saturday, the collective kind of power that the whole group took upon themselves to say, we're back, we will give absolutely everything to kind of reverse that. When the momentum was we stopped poor, we somehow shifted the momentum back into our favour, and to see that was powerful, and then to come on the right side of that result only hopes to give us more power.
I got two more.
Okay.
Tom first.
Sure. Yeah. What is the realistic expectations for Walsall this season?
For me, what I keep saying, that's my mantra at the moment. We're just trying to keep ticking off teams, keep kind of trying to drive ahead of teams, and we'll see where that takes us then. At the moment we're 11th, there are teams above us, we need to keep ticking them off and getting above them.
Alright. Before we finish, we would like to play a game with you.
I love these games now, I'm well into them, let's play.
And we play with all our guests. This game is called Wrong Answer Only. We will ask you a range of questions and you have to give us the wrong answer. Are you ready?
Yeah, go on then. I'll get the wrong answers anyway, so this is an easy one for me. Yeah.
Favourite ground you've played at?
Villa Park.
Best player you ever played with?
So by wrong answers, am I giving the opposite of what's my favourite ground?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Villa Park's the
least
least
favourite.
favourite ground I've ever played at. Yeah, right, okay, we work with that. No, obviously that is a fantastic ground, by the way, but as a Birmingham fan. Anyway, say that again.
Best player you ever played with?
Best player I ever played with. So the worst player I ever played with.
Basically, yes.
Right, okay.
Well, just not the best.
Yeah. Well, he's a good friend of mine, so I'll say Mike Taylor. He's the worst player I've ever played with.
What did you do this time?
Yeah.
Highlight of your career?
Sitting here with you guys. It's a very big moment.
Hi!
Is that the right? Oh, right, no, it's okay. Right, it's actually highlight of my actual playing career.
I think
Or
so.
the low light. I'm bamboozled by this game.
Tell me about it.
The highlight of your career, give the wrong answer. So the final at Wembley.
Oh yeah, that was the best part of my career. Be relegated out.
No, I'm just gonna go.
Favourite manager you played for?
I think I can already guess.
See, I don't want to be not very nice to anybody. So,
Don't worry, they know that you don't really mean it. We're just having a bit of fun.
no, they were all great. I'm not going to say anybody. They were all fantastic for different reasons.
The best thing about Mat Sadler is
Now we're gonna have you poke fun at yourself. Sorry.
The best thing about me is how boring I am. That's the best part. Yeah.
every week on the podcast, we like our guests to ask questions to each other. So we get a guest to ask a question, but they have no idea who the question is going to be for. This week's questions comes from our previous guest, which was former England and British Lions rugby player Lee Mears, and he actually has 2 questions. His question is, what is the most embarrassing moment of your career?
You have to ask this one.
The embarrassing. Well, that one when I got my pants out there. That was
You want to find
dodgy
it.
part of my career, right?
Bye. Make it go bye bye.
Yeah, delete.
Find the person who took that photo.
Whoever that was, who was it? Let's have a look. We'll try and find it. Most embarrassing moment of my career. What answers have you had for things like that?
This is actually the first time
First of all,
we've
yeah,
asked
because
something like
the
this.
guests ask whatever question they want.
Yeah, it's random.
Right,
But
okay.
soon you'll be able to ask your own.
Oh yes, okay, I'll think about that after. Most embarrassing. My wife will probably tell me what the most. Oh, when I got sent off for handball, that's what was the most embarrassing. So I've gone up for. I've misread a ball completely. This is for Walsall. Got in one of my, not far off one of my last appearances. Gone up to try and read the ball. It's gone too far over my head. I've caught it, and this is in the middle of our half to stop their playing going through. Got sent off. It was terrible defending.
Took one for the team.
Hugely embarrassing. Oh, then they scored about 30 seconds after that.
His second question is, if you could recommend a book for people to read, what would it be and why?
It would be the Slash autobiography, Slash as in from Guns N' Roses, and that would be purely because I love Guns N' Roses music, and it was very interesting listening to what they got up to in the 80s.
Could you do the same, please? Can you think of a question for our next guest, please? But we aren't going to tell you who the guest is.
Yeah.
The question could be anything you want.
Anything. You don't even have to do anything like with
Why not?
sports.
Oh,
It
okay.
can be completely random.
And so the last ones were, what was the most embarrassing thing in your career? Okay. Let's think of a good question then. Favourite Christmas song? That's always a good one, can evoke memories. No, favourite Christmas movie, I'll ask that.
Okay.
And what was your biggest regret in your career?
Okay. I would just like to say a big thank you again to everyone who listens to our podcast. We really appreciate it. Please continue to leave reviews and pass our podcast on to your friends and family. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, Matt. We
It's been
really
my
enjoyed
pleasure.
speaking with you, and it means so much to us as a school to be able to have the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to sit and speak with you guys. I think it's